Good morning. Before I take a few of your questions, Director Johnson and I want to take a couple of minutes to discuss the vote this morning by the Board of Estimates to approve an increase in the rate charged to users of our conduit system. First, for a bit of background on our conduit system. Our city operates about 17 million conduit. This is the underground system of house and protect electrical, transmission lines, cable TV lines, fiber lines, and similar wiring. BGE is by far the largest user of that system, consisting of about 70% of the total occupancy of the conduit. Companies also use our conduit system. The prior rate agreement between the city and BGE expired in November of 2014. Since then, the Department of Transportation has been in discussions about the conduit system, the appropriate lease rates, and the safety and service concerns that they have about our system. As we reviewed what we charge to users of the conduit, we came to the conclusion that the rate was simply too low to cover the cost of upkeep, maintenance, and upgrades. Our conduit system has been in existence for 115 years. The majority of the system was constructed between 1900, mostly constructed out of materials that exceed 100 years of age. But due to the low amount of money that we collect, we've had to operate a reactive instead of proactive maintenance system. We're performing patchwork repairs and responding only to sections of the system that fail in an emergency, instead of responsibly performing proper long-term maintenance work. Without increasing the rate and making long-term investment in repairs and upgrading the system, we will see increasing issues with safety and with service interruptions. The rate increase that we approved today is based on an evaluation from the Department of Audits, reflecting the actual cost to operate and maintain the city's conduit system. With the additional money, we anticipate being able to inspect and repair 12 to 15% of the system each year, much higher than the 3% of the system we're able to reach at the current low rate. Before I turn things over to Director Johnson for a few comments, I want to respond to two arguments I've heard against the rate increase. First, to those who say that these dollars will go to other city services, that's simply untrue. The money goes into a dedicated account and will be used to manage, maintain, and invest in our conduit system. And second, in response to the threat by BGE to take this conduit rate increase and pass the entire cost onto Baltimore City customers, I promise that I will vigorously fight against any such effort. When BGE builds new transformer stations in Reisterstown, all of its customers pay the cost. When BGE builds new transmission lines in Anne Arundel County, all of its customers share the cost. Why would the cost of maintaining the conduit system justify BGE drawing a line around Baltimore City and adding a new surcharge only to Baltimore City customers? It's not fair, it's not right, and we'll fight any such effort with the Public Service Commission. With that, I want to introduce Director Johnson. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think you've probably hit all of the high points of this. I'd just like to add that the DOT team has been working diligently with BG&E to come to some resolution around the appropriate rates to be charged for the use of our conduit system. We value BG&E as an important corporate partner here, and we welcome their input and are sympathetic to their concerns. But at the same time, what needs to be done in order to maintain the system remains as it is. We are looking to improve overall quality, service, eliminate disruptions, and address a number of safety issues and security issues that we see with our system. I'd like to thank our staff who have worked so hard for the last year in bringing this to a resolution. With that, I guess we'll take questions.
Now that this is passed, do you foresee negotiations with BGE going forward that could potentially change this rate before it goes into effect in November?
Again, I think BG&E is an important corporate partner here in Baltimore City. They're here to stay. We're here to stay, and we want to work with them in any way possible. So if there are creative options that they want to talk to us about, we're certainly open to continuing discussions with them.
BGE claims that you were saying that you can use the revenue for other sources. Is that not true? That's
absolutely untrue. This revenue is dedicated for the use and the repair and maintenance of the conduit system. It goes into a special enterprise fund. Mm-hmm. It's not commingled with other city funds, and those funds historically and going forward will continue to be used to maintain and repair the conduit system.
And I just want to add, it was surprising to me that such a claim would be made by BGE's lawyer, certainly when she couldn't back it up with any specifics. I think to impugn in my mind, the character of the Department of Transportation Director was inappropriate in the way it was done.
With the upgrades to the conduit system, how does this affect the city's long-term plans for broadband and expanding access to broadband?
Well, one of the issues with the conduit system is the lack of connectivity. There are sections of the network that are not functional. There are manholes that can't be accessed, and the city's tried to compensate for this over the years instead of making and doing those repairs by simply just rerouting. So in some ways, it's going to develop a network, an underground network that's going to have more connectivity and be more functional in support of whatever broadband users may want to, whatever sections they may want to utilize in the future.
And there's about 50 companies that are using it currently?
We have about 48 companies that are currently tenants, and we welcome any additional tenants who choose to use the system.
I want to clarify something that I thought I heard BG&E say. They are required to use the system under the agreement. Do we know anything about that?
Under the current structure, users, people who come into the city to develop or whatever, as they build conduit, as part of their development agreements, that conduit may be constructed and then it becomes part of the city system for ongoing maintenance. The users who come into the system are required to use our system unless they have some other form of agreement that allows them to have a separate system.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I ask you about the 911 situation? Well, I guess the simplest question is there, as we're speaking, the transfer of this system back to the police department, is it underway?
No, that's not what's happening right now. And let me just first start by saying the issue of the wait time and busy signals and concerns that have been raised about 911 have been a concern to me for a while, and my team has been working on a solution. The issues seem to be staffing and demand. There's been a 20% increase in the number of calls year over year, and there's simply not enough 911 call takers to respond to that significant increase in calls. I'm very, very pleased that a new class is being trained, and it's 10 people that are being trained. Usually the training consists of onboarding one person at a time, but in order to respond to the concerns that I raised about the staffing and the response time, they're able to have a class of 10 individuals. We also shortened the class length, which had been a problem of onboarding new call takers to respond to the significant increase in 911 calls. The class time used to be 8 months. For this class, it is going to be, they worked to condense the training to a 4-month period. We are set to launch another class, a second class of multiple students next month. I think the questions about where they're housed is, I think it's less important than making sure that we have the right number of staff and resources that are necessary to respond, and we're working very hard to fill that gap.
The complaint of many of these operators is that when went from the police department supervision to MOIT, at some point, their working conditions changed. And they were held to kind of a rules structure that was, as they described it, really punitive and only adds to the, for instance, if they're a minute or two late, they get, points against them. When you get to X number of points, you get suspended. So they apparently have a fair amount of people suspended for these, work rule violations that were imposed under a new structure when it went to MOIT. Are you aware of the complaints internally?
Absolutely. I've met with the union representative for the callers, and we've worked to do things to improve the work environment. But at the end of the day, there needs to be accountability, and the director, whoever it is, needs to be able to hold workers accountable for performance. And I believe that wherever the call takers finally where they rest, they're still going to be held accountable for a high quality of work performance.
For those of us who have not been in the city that long, what was the rationale in moving 911 from the police department to MOIT?
I remember the reason at the time. Off the top of my head, I can't remember all of the reasons why. We can certainly get you an answer to that. I know that I can say what I do remember off the top of my head is that we were looking to make some efficiencies in response to a very tough budget year, and those efficiencies were we looked for efficiencies throughout the administration, and I believe that was one of them, but like I said, I can get you more specific answers.
Are there any?
There's a 20% increase in calls. Like, how do we get to such a higher demand?
I don't know the reason for the significant increase in calls. I can tell you that we've been doing a lot of work to try to reduce the number of calls by introducing things like there's a program in the fire department that focuses on what they term frequent flyers, individuals that call more than 350 times a year to try to focus on better case management for those individuals. There's a group of people in the city that call just about every day, and we've been doing things like that because if you just better manage that group of people, you significantly reduce the number of calls that we get. So we're working through things like that to try to better manage how we are using, the city is using the 911 system. But the calls went up significantly, and unfortunately, it's not like you can't go to a staffing service and say, give me 10 911 callers in order to fill that gap, or not necessarily fill a gap, but to raise the staffing levels to meet the current needs. You can't flip a switch. You have to have this training program, and we're working hard to get that done.
So just to go back to the first question I asked, I believe that Kevin Davis said that this is going to transition back to the police department. Is that correct?
I think they're looking at it. There hasn't been any final decisions made as far as I know.
Do you support that?
I have not been. This is going to be a decision that's made after a briefing, and I have not been briefed on that yet.
Are there any other cities that have their 911 operators not within either the fire department or the police department that Baltimore is comparable to?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that the dispatchers lie in the police and fire. The call takers are another thing. They're with MOIT, but I don't. I'm an encyclopedia of a lot of things, but not on where the other jurisdictions house their call takers.
Madam Mayor, yesterday there was a lawsuit filed for $6 million by a man who says he was punched and tackled by a police officer back in February. Do you have any reaction to that lawsuit?
Just that the issues of complaints that our citizens have, our residents have against the police department, I take them very, very seriously. I've been working throughout my career in public service, and not just as mayor. I introduced the racial profiling legislation as a city council person. I worked for almost 10 years as a public defender, defending the rights of individuals, many of whom had complaints about the police department, and I've worked very hard, particularly as mayor, to improve the relationship between the community and the police, to improve the training, and to reform the department. And I've been very proud that we continue to reduce the number of lawsuits that are brought against the city, that we continue to reduce the number of excessive force complaints and discourtesy complaints. We have a ways to go to reform the department and to bring trust, to build that trust back up between the community and the police and the community. So I do take the lawsuit very seriously, and we will work through the process.
All right, well, I've got another one. The state's Department of Audits released a report last week saying that the city had not submitted an audit report for the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2014. Why hasn't that information been handed over to the state, do you know?
I don't know. If you give me the specifics about it, I can get you an answer for that. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.